Hi everyone, my name is Rajesh and in this video we are going to cover few more basic Microsoft Excel features that are needed for the ERP consultants. In this series of Microsoft Excel basic features for ERP consultants, we have so far covered two videos, and in those two videos we have covered these features. First of all, we covered find and replace. Then we covered sort and filter. So these two features we covered in our first video. If you have not watched that first video, I'm giving the link over here so you can go back and watch that first video first. Then in the next video in our series, we already covered paste spatial and data validation. And thirdly, remove duplicate and conditional formatting features. Again, if you have not watched that second video in this series on Microsoft Excel features, I'm again providing the link over here so you can go and watch that video and then come back to watch this third episode on this series of Microsoft Excel features for the ERP consultants. With that, in this third video of the series on Microsoft Excel, we are going to have a look at few more basic features which are listed here. So to start with, we will look at the basic formulas, some of the basic formulas that may be helpful for you while crunching or while working with the data in Microsoft Excel. So which basic formulas we are going to have a look at? Sum, if, average, trim, upper, lower, proper, and concatenate. These are some of the formulas. So I'm going to tell you what is the use of each of these formulas with the help of one worked example. Same way how we saw the other features in our previous videos. So let me go to basic formulas worksheet, which I have prepared for demonstrating these all formulas. So we are quite familiar with the data or with the set of data that we have been dealing with in our last two videos, which is a trainee's scores from the test that I have conducted. So that's the data set that we are looking at. Now, here in this data, we have trainee 1 to trainee 15 spread across multiple batches, and they were subjected to a test wherein there were 3 questions, and there are the scores of all of those 3 questions listed in column C, D, and E. Now, first of all, what's the use of sum formula? Now, as the name suggests, it is just the sum total of multiple columns values. So if I just want a total of question number 1, 2, and 3 score, simply I can write this formula as is equal to sum. And now you need to open the bracket, and here also system will prompt or Excel will prompt you like what you need to write or in which syntax you need to write. For example, here if you want to have a sum of multiple numbers or multiple cells, then it has prompted you that you have to write each of the cells reference separated by comma. And that is where I can write it either this way, then comma, then this, then comma, and then this particular cell. And then I can close the bracket and it will give me the sum total of all the cells that I have selected. However, here I just had 3 columns. But in some cases, I might have, let's say, 50 columns, and I want a sum of all of those 50 columns in the last 51st column. Now, obviously, I'm not going to write or reference each of that cell one by one, separating by comma. Rather, I can also specify the range. So for specifying the range, you again need to have this particular wording is equal to sum, then bracket open, then select the first column or the first cell in the range of cells where you want to perform this summation formula, and then write in this particular way that mention colon and then specify or last cell in your range and then close the bracket. So this is also a way. Now I have used this summation formula in one of my cells and I just want to copy that formula in all the remaining cells. So what I can simply do is I can copy this and paste it directly. I don't need to use the paste spatial over here because this is anyways going to paste my formula because I have the formula in the original cell. Now the second formula, which is average. Now, as the name suggests, or as you would know, this mathematical formula or mathematical operation performs the average in the range of the values that you have given. So how to write this formula is equal to average. Then again, as I mentioned in case of summation formula, Excel just prompted us what to use, and you can simply select that and then open the bracket and you just need to use the same way of or the same syntax as you used in summation formula for average also. For example, here I want the average of these three cells, so I can simply select these three cells and close my bracket and hit the enter. So that gave me the average of values that are present in these three cells. Again, I can simply copy this and paste it in all the rows. So it gave me the average of whatever values were there. It is as simple as like sum of all of those divided by number of all the cells that are there. The simple formula how we calculate the average. Now here, suppose I do not want to have these many decimal places and I just want to have two decimal places. Then what I can do is I can come back to home and I can simply select this particular number format or comma style. This is something that will ideally make it as an number with two decimal points. So the first two formulas that we had were more of a mathematical operation. Now the third formula that I'm going to show you is the logical operation, or how to build a logical formula. Now what I want to do, first of all, let's understand that objective. Here I want to specify the grades based on the total that I have got for each of the row. For example, here this particular test was of 3 questions. So the total score for this test is obviously 3 because I have allocated 1 score or 1 mark to each of the question. So what I want to do is, suppose if a student or a trainee has got 3 out of 3, then that person needs to be treated as grade A. If suppose one person has got, let's say, 2 out of 3, then that person needs to be treated as grade B. And if it is less than 2 out of 3, which is like either 1 out of 3 or 0 out of 3, then that person needs to be treated as grade C. That's what I want to do. Now, how can I achieve this using the formula? You can use basically the logical formula using the if statement. So how to build this formula? You have to write is equal to, then if, and then you have to open the bracket. And now here it has given you the syntax. So what's that syntax? Firstly, you need to specify the logical test. Then you need to specify value if true, and then you need to specify value if false. So let's understand what exactly this means. So the first condition that I wanted was if my total is equal to 3. So let me write that logical test. Now how to write that? I need to select this cell and mention that if this is equal to 3. Now this actually makes my logical test or logical statement. Then I have to give the comma, and then I have to say what value I want to have as the grade over here. Now if I want to have a specific alphabet or specific character as a value that needs to appear over here, I need to select it within double inverted comma. That is again a part of syntax. So I need to select this and mention that it needs to have the value as grade A. Okay. And then if this particular logical test is not true, then what needs to happen? That also I need to specify. So that is called as value if false. So as soon as I give the comma, it gives me the value if false, that third statement or third part of that entire formula, as the highlighted or bold one. So here I can simply for now specify grade B, which is not something that's the end objective that I want, but let us build this formula step by step. So let's start with simple. So here this actually gives me my formula. So again, if we look at the syntax of the formula, it is like if, then logical test, which in my case is F2 is equal to 3. Then it gives me the result that I want if that logical test is true. And then the result that I want if that logical test is false. Okay. So that's how you build a simple if formula. However, now as I mentioned in the beginning, my end objective is not just this, right? Because my end objective is also to allocate grade B and grade C depending upon the total that I have. So for that, what I can do, let's see that. So here I can build multiple if statements within one formula itself. So how to do that? Here, rather than writing directly the false value, I can give the comma and then I can again write if. Okay. And then I can open another if statements formula within the first if statement formula. So now I'll state my second logical test, which is if my F2 is equal to 2. Then what needs to happen? Then again, I'll give comma and then I'll say that it needs to state as grade B. Okay. Now this is not all. We want to have the third statement or third logical test also, which again I'll give by putting in comma over here and opening the third if statement and saying that if my column F value or if my F2 cell is less than 2. And then I will say that my value for this one needs to be grade C, or let me write it this way, grade C, and I'll close my inverted comma. Now, if you look at this syntax or the formula that I have built, so I have basically opened 3 logical if statements within the first formula or within the first if statement itself. So I need to close all of them also, right? But before that, I need to write the value if false, like if at all this F2 is neither 3 nor 2 nor less than 2, then what is going to happen? For example, if somehow this value is 4, because you need to cover all the possibilities in that formula, then what I'll write is I'll simply write the value as false because it doesn't fall in my specific range. So I need to look at that data more vigilantly, and that is where I'll write that if any one of these 3 conditions are not fulfilled, then the value should be given as false. And then I need to close all the brackets which I have opened one by one. So it will give me, like while I'm typing these close brackets, or it will showcase me what exact bracket I'm closing. For example, when I'm typing the second bracket, just observe that it for a moment highlighted that particular bracket, the open bracket for which this closed bracket relates to. And the third bracket is then for the first or against the first bracket, and that is where my formula is completely built, and I can hit enter, and this is how you can build the complex if formula with multiple conditions and multiple results. And now I simply need to copy this formula and paste it in all other values that I have. Now here, if you look at based on my total, like for example, my sum total is 1 and that is where it has given the grade as C. If my sum total is 2, it has given the grade as B, and if my sum total is 0, it has given the grade as C. That's what ideally we wanted to achieve as an end objective. So far we have seen 3 formulas: sum, average and if, out of which sum and average were more of a mathematical operations and if is the logical formula. Now there are certain other useful features which can ideally neither be classified as mathematical operations nor as the logical formulas, but these are still important. For example, the trim formula. That's the fourth one which we are going to have a look at. What exactly is meant by trim? Now, many a times what happens is when you get the data from any other third party source, let's say you download the data from some other software, or maybe you get the data from some website, or you get the data from some other document copied into an Excel sheet. And many a times what happens is your data might have some impurities. For example, there might be a space after this trainee 1, or there might be a space before this trainee 2. Now, ideally, this is not logical to leave it that way, because if you are building some formula based on this particular cell, suppose that if you want to build an if formula using this particular cell, and if you write that is equal to if A2 is having a value called trainee space 1, now that formula is not going to render the effective results because the value that is there in this cell is not trainee space 1, but the value that is there in this cell is trainee space 1, and then again there is a space. And that is where these kind of impurities might hamper your data calculation or data crunching. And that's where how exactly you get rid of all of these impurities, for which the trim formula is used. So what this trim does is it removes all the leading spaces, which are like the spaces before your values, or the trailing spaces, which means the spaces that are after your value. So this formula helps you remove all such spaces, unwanted spaces I would say, and make your value trimmed. That's where this formula is known as trimmed. So how to use this formula? It's quite simple. you have to write is equal to, then trim, and then so it also shows you the meaning of this particular formula, like removes all the spaces from a text string except for single spaces between the word. Okay, so by the way, this will also help you remove if there are any double spaces or more than one spaces between two words. That will also be done by this particular formula. So for first of all, let's see for the cell 1. So I'll just need to open the bracket and I'll select the cell on which I need to perform this trim formula and then hit enter. Similarly, I'll do it for trainee 2, and then in the third one, as that description said, let's also try that. So let me have 3 spaces between this trainee and 3. And what I would like to do is I would like to remove those unwanted 2 spaces and only have that 1 space between trainee and 3. So again, I'll copy this same formula over here, and then it has removed that unwanted spaces in between. Now, how to verify whether it has removed it or not? It is quite simple. Do the Control C or copy these cells and then right click, do the paste spatial, as which we have seen already in our previous video. Paste it as values, and that is where you will be able to then go into these cells and see whether this particular thing has worked or not. So you can see that now there is no trailing space, or here in this case now there is no leading space, or here in this case there is only one space between the trainee and 3. So this is how you use the trim formula. Now the fourth one, fifth one and sixth one, these 3 formula are sort of related to each other. Okay, what do you mean by upper, lower and proper? I would rather classify these formulas as grammatical formula. So these are neither mathematical formula, nor these are logical formula, nor these are like data cleansing formula. In a way, these are data cleansing formula itself, but these are more of grammatical formula. How exactly? See, there is a norm in English grammar that whenever you are writing a word, the first letter of that word, or rather, whenever you are writing a sentence, the first letter of the first word in that sentence needs to be uppercase or needs to be capital, and then all other letters all other words need to be in the lowercase or small letters, right? But many a times when you get the data from different sources, it may not follow these rules. So sometimes the data might look something like this. Say for example, over here I have this data called trainee 4. Then over here I have somehow got this data like this, trainee 5. Over here, let's say I have got that data like this. Okay, now these are again the impurities which ideally do not look good in your data. So how to remove these impurities? To remove these impurities, you will need to use this formula called proper. Now here, if I simply write is equal to proper, now it also gives you the description. It says that converts a text string to proper case, the first letter in each word to uppercase and all other letters to lowercase. Now here, just because this is an Excel and here you are not going to write the full sentences ideally within the cells, but you are going to write the words. That's where the formula that it applies is like first letter of every word being uppercase and all other letters in the word being lowercase. That's how it basically converts your text. So what I all need to do is open a bracket and then simply select a particular cell and close the bracket, hit enter. That's it, right? Similarly, if I copy this formula over here, then what it will do is it will make these impurities cleared, or it will sort of make these values proper. That's what this proper formula does. Now you might have a requirement in some cases that you actually want to transform all the words in a particular cell into the uppercase. If you want to do that, then you can use this upper formula. How exactly? Do it for this row, and let me simply write is equal to upper, open the bracket and then select this particular cell and close the bracket. So observe what it has done. So earlier in my particular original data cell, it had the first letter as capital or uppercase and all other letters as small case. But then here by using the upper formula, what it has done is it has converted all my alphabets or all the letters in that cell in the uppercase. If at all you have that requirement, you can use this upper formula. Lower formula does the exactly opposite thing. So over here, suppose I select is equal to lower, and then if I select this cell and close the bracket, then what it has done here, my first letter in my original data was in uppercase or capital. It made that letter also in the smaller case. Like this, for grammatical operations or for grammatically correcting your words or your contents in a particular cell, you can use these formulas called upper, lower, and proper. So far we have seen these two formulas, which are mathematical operations. This one, which is more of a logical operation. And these four are more about the data cleansing or making your data, making your text appear proper in your Excel sheets. And now we are going to see the last formula. Now this concatenate is very useful operation, and in many interviews where your Excel skills are tested, you will find that the interviewer is most likely to ask you about this particular formula, which is called concatenate. So how to use this particular formula called concatenate? Let's see that. First of all, what's the end objective? Here, for example, I have the trainee names over here in column 1, and I have the batch names or the batches of that trainee over here in column 2. Now, for some reason, what I want to have is I want to combine these two cells. And I want to get the values in these two cells combined with maybe one separator called dash. So what I want is in one of my cell, I want to have the value something like this. Let's say trainee 1 hyphen or dash and then batch 1. Okay. Sorry, there is a space between trainee and 1. So this is how I want to get all my cells values in one other cell or in my third cell. This exact thing can be done using this formula called concatenate. Okay, so how to use that? Again, the same syntax is equal to, you need to write concatenate and read the description of this formula. It says that it joins several text strings into one text string. Now you need to open the bracket, and over here, first of all, you will need to select your first cell's text which you want to have. Then comma, and here it is not just about merging two cells text. It can be done for n number of cells by just writing comma and then selecting that particular cell. So what I'll do is I'll then hit the comma and I will select this second cell and then I'll close the bracket. Now, what you saw, what it did over here is it simply merged both of those cells content. However, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have an hyphen in between. It did not do that. So how to do that now? So in this formula, if you want a specific character to appear in between these two text cells, then you simply write that character using two inverted comma. So I'll write that inverted comma hyphen, then again double inverted comma and then comma. So this is how I can simply join the text in both the cells into one cells, or I can join the text that is appearing in multiple cells into one cells. Now why exactly that might be needed? It might be needed for something like VLOOKUP. This is one of the most hyped formulas or one of the most hyped features in the Excels, which is VLOOKUP. Now, why exactly this particular thing might be needed in case of VLOOKUP in the kind of data that we are having, we are going to see this in our next video. So stay tuned and watch our next video in this series of Microsoft Excel features for the ERP consultants. For now, that's it. Thank you everyone for watching this video. With the advent of cloud, the ERP solutions are becoming more and more affordable. And that's where even the small and mid-scale organizations are increasingly opting for ERP softwares. What it means for us is ERP consulting as a career option is now more lucrative than ever. So if you are a fresher finance, commerce and management graduate and want to build your career in the ERP consulting industry, then go visit www.yourerpcoach.com and hit that inquire button right now.